morning again.
Good morning.
I know some of you have been with me throughout this sermon series on sacred abundance, but for those of you who are joining us for the first time, we're on the fourth part today. Lighten your load. Lighten your load. And don't fret if this is your first opportunity to hear this information, because each week Reverend Robin Ryder, who created this program, gave us a principle that stands alone. It really does. That if you understand these principles and then start to incorporate them in your life, you're really going to see a transformation take place. A transformation that looks like all the good things that your heart desires as far as prosperity. As I've said before, it's not just an issue of being wealthier, though that's nice, right? It's an issue of being healthier. I'm all for that. For having more harmony in your relationships, for having more peace of mind. Wouldn't that be nice? Mm-hmm. Be less anxious and afraid and worried. Anybody feel that way sometimes? Mm-hmm. No? So we have covered putting God first. First things first, putting God first in your life. We've talked about the bumblebee principle, which is that concept that with God, all things are possible. We had that discussion in our Sacred Abundance class yesterday, where we had these exercises where we were writing down some things that if resources were not a question, what would you want? For example, like what 5 trips or vacations would you take? What would your dream job be? Those kind of things. And then later on in the class came a question, what do you think is really possible from your possibility list? And what do you think absolutely can't happen? And the majority of the class, what do you think they said? All things are possible, because we are starting to change our thinking, yes? I hope. Mm-hmm. All things are possible with God. If you're out there and you're kind of feeling a little skeptical right now, I invite you to come to the class, or to at least get the materials on this program and listen to Robin Ryder's teachings. It's very exciting. And then the third principle that we talked about last week was the universe listens. And it doesn't listen to the casual conversation that we might have. You know, sometimes you might say something like, oh, I just feel like I could die. And it's just a casual remark. Do you think you're going to drop down dead from that? Hopefully not, right? Or we would have many times over for some of us. But if you give your focus, your concentration, your attention, your energy to that thought, I'm going to die, like I have been for a while, no, for a little bit over the last 3 weeks, not too bad. But then what the prosperity principle says is the universe listens to that. It pays attention to that. And not in a punishing way, and not in a rewarding way, but in a totally objective way, like that genie in the bottle. Your wish is what? My command. So we've got to pay attention to what is it. I love how Robin said, pay attention to what you're thinking about and ask that question, do I want more of this? Do I want more of this in my life right now, what I'm thinking about, what I'm giving my energy to, what I'm putting my focus on, right? So today we're getting into lightening your load. Well, what load is that? Lightening your load. She starts with a story, and I really struggled whether to tell this to you again, because some of you have heard this once, maybe twice, maybe thrice. I'm looking at some of my true students in the front row. So just bear with us, because I know there's some people out there that have never heard this story. And she tells it at the beginning of her talk, and I think it's so relevant to this concept of lightening your load. So how many of you heard the story about the clay Buddha? You know the clay Buddha, some of you, okay? Well, I'm going to take you to Thailand. That's the place. The year is 1957. There's a large clay statue of the Buddha. And it has to be moved from the monastery, because the monastery finds out that they have to be relocated because a highway is being put in. So there's this precious, precious idol, this clay Buddha for these monks. And the crane comes in to lift it, and the weight of it is so tremendous that the Buddha starts to crack. And at the same time, it starts to rain. The head monk was terribly frightened and had immediately decided to have them lower it right back down in its original position and cover it up with a tarp, at least until the rain passed. Well, he came out in the middle of the night to check on how the Buddha was doing. And so the head monkey has his flashlight in one hand and he starts to lift the tarp to look under, and he's surprised because as he's showing the light of the flashlight on this giant clay statue, he sees a reflection, a glimmer of light shining back at him. So he looks a little closer, he pulls the tarp back even more, and there was something there. No doubt there was something there underneath the clay. So he goes inside, he gets a chisel and a hammer. I always found this part of the story a little funny. He's worried about the crack, but he goes and gets the hammer and the chisel. And he begins to gently tap away. This is a true story, by the way. He begins to gently tap away at the clay. And the pieces start falling off, one after the other, and he was absolutely amazed at what he was uncovering. After hours of arduous work, he stood there beholding a 10.5-foot tall, what was it for those of you who heard the story? Golden, solid gold Buddha. It was the most magnificent thing he had ever seen. And it now sits in the temple of the Golden Buddha, and it's worth nearly $200 million. And the story goes that it was 200 to 300 years before this discovery that the monks who were caring for this golden Buddha covered it up with clay because they were about to be invaded. And they were afraid that they were going to lose this precious statue. So they covered it solid with clay. Well, unfortunately, all of those monks were slaughtered. And so the secret of the golden Buddha went with them to their grave. And the truth was hidden for hundreds of years. True story. Well, one of the most profound elements of prosperity, a critical key to manifesting our prosperity, is to know the truth of who we are. We talk about that a lot here at Unity, don't we? What is our true, real nature? Who and what are we? Really? And what's the answer? Yes. We're the children of God. Each one of us is that unique, unrepeatable, extraordinary, beloved child of God. You know, if you imagine holding a brand new baby, you see that incredible divinity, don't you? Isn't that what we respond to, that shining light that comes forth? And as Robin said, then life happens. Life happens. Experience happens. Wounds happen. You know, I love how Robin describes this. She says that as we start to move through childhood, we may make a mistake. Did you ever make a mistake going through childhood? And perhaps someone is there to witness the mistake, right? And they say, "You fool," and smack on goes that first glob of clay, right? Or we want to try something new and it's kind of outside our comfort zone, but we do it anyway and we fall a little short of maybe what other people expect of us. And there again is someone witnessing it, right, who says, "You idiot, you're so incompetent." And there, smack on, goes another little hunk of clay. Resonating? Remembering? And throughout our life experience, as we interact with people who in many cases themselves, right, don't know who they truly are, they've forgotten, haven't they? The truth of us begins to be covered over, and we forget that our very essence is of God. How did you feel when the choir got up and started singing, "I love myself so much"?